Coach Fink, will the entire football schedule be released today with the non-cons as well?
Yeah, the non-conference, we was out there. Check your media guide for that if you wanted those dates. That's been out there for a long time. But yes, the entire schedule will be out today. Starts at 2 o'clock, so they'd say the whole thing will be out by about 2:40 our time because they're going week by week, I think, through it. It's all about the TV.
They're going to milk this thing for 40 minutes.
11 o'clock, and it looks like everybody's in the room, so we'll open up with head coach Shane Beamer. I think Shane is now 11th in seniority already in the SEC, moving up quickly. Go ahead, Coach. We'll opening statement, and we'll open up for a few questions.
Thanks. That's a heck of a statement right there. Thanks. Appreciate you guys making time and joining us today. Good to see your faces again. Off to a great start this week as well, or middle of the week. Weight room, we're hard at it with Coach Day. The workouts have been going great down there. A lot of energy and excitement and great vibes around the team right now. So really pleased with the way those guys are working with him. Academically, we're off to a great start with what our guys are doing this semester so far. So just continuing to try and move this program forward and do great things from that aspect on and off the field. It's been great to see so many of the former players that have come by here just in the last week or so, from Alshon Jeffrey to Melvin Ingram to Patrick DeMarco to Steve Tannehill and Davis Moore this morning, and then the text messages and phone calls that I've gotten from guys that are coming soon is what they've told me. That's really exciting and certainly very appreciative of them and what makes this place so special as well. Big day, obviously, throughout the SEC today with the release of our schedule. Really looking forward to our fans being able to see what that home schedule and full schedule looks like today. Obviously, we've had the non-conference schedule out there for a while, which will be challenging as always. And then when you play in this conference, we know what it means to play football in this league. That's why so many prospects want to come play in the SEC, is to play against the best week in and week out, and certainly this coming season will be no different, and excited for everyone to see the schedule and what the order is and what a challenge it will be, but our guys are working hard every day to get ready to go attack that and compete this fall as well, starting out with Eastern Illinois in that first game. Please, I know we're here today to talk about Greg Adkins, our new offensive line coach. Really pleased that we were able to get him on board with us, somebody that myself and Marcus Satterfield have known for a long time, back when we were graduate assistants together at Tennessee, and Greg was on that staff, and somebody that I've had a lot of respect for a long time as a coach, as a recruiter, as a person. Since that time that we were together at Tennessee, what he's done has been really impressive. Before he came to Tennessee, obviously spending time at the University of Georgia, and then his time at Tennessee, and then since then the coaches and the places that he's been, whether it be in the NFL with the Buffalo Bills, the different conferences and systems that he's been exposed to, being in the Big 12 and at Oklahoma State, being in the NFL, being at Syracuse, and then the SEC ties. He's a hellacious recruiter. Always has been, a great person, will be great for our players, our offensive line guys on and off the field. Will help those guys. Very knowledgeable, and like I said, great recruiter. And so many great people. Obviously, Luke Day and he worked together at Marshall, so Luke had some familiarity with him most recently, obviously. And then what I have thought about him all along, but then to hear from so many coaches, from David Cutcliffe to Doug Marrone, those guys that called me and texted me about him as well. Fortunate to get him. And then it's important, too, I said this before, that your offensive coordinator and that offensive line coach, they have to be aligned and speak the same language and mesh with each other. I've heard and seen too many horror stories where that offensive coordinator, play caller, and the offensive line coach don't mesh, and that is a challenge. So I certainly wasn't going to force anyone on Marcus. We had some great conversations, myself and Marcus both, with potential line coaches that were out there, and everything obviously kept coming back to Greg, and really fortunate that he decided to join us and got down here yesterday and walked in the building, and 20 minutes later he was in his first staff meeting and started out with compliance and everything else and into recruiting, and was on a virtual visit that we were doing with some prospects last night. So he's excited to be here, and a great addition for our staff as well. So with that, be glad to answer any questions that you guys have and go from there.
First question goes to Josh Kendall. Josh, you're on
Can't hear you,
mute.
Josh.
I guess these headphones are busted. Sorry.
Josh, that's a rookie mistake right there, man.
And I got no excuse for being a rookie. I'm a lots of things. A rookie is not one of them. You talked about the play calling process with Marcus and Greg. Have you figured out how you want to be involved in that on Saturdays?
I mean, it's things that we'll continue to work through. I mean, I learned this from my dad. I mean, you hire great coaches and you let them go coach, whether that be Pete Limbo with special teams, Clayton White with defense, Marcus Satterfield with the offense, and coaches have said it before, and it's true. So many of those play calls, decisions that are made on Saturday are really decided during those long days and nights, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, leading up to Saturday. So obviously as the head coach, I'm going to be heavily involved. And I said this before, and I mean it, that coming from the backgrounds that I've been around offensively, and then coming from Lincoln Riley and that system at Oklahoma, that's what have been around. And not that I'm the most knowledgeable guy in the world, but I'd like to think that I've got could have a little bit of input from a schematic standpoint when it comes to the offense and the defense and special teams. But on Saturdays, I mean, I'm not going to be a guy that's micromanaging and making calls. I mean, it's things that we talk about during the game, throughout or in between series and things like that. But Marcus has got to know that, you know, he and Greg and our offensive staff will put together that plan during the week, and ultimately as the head coach, I have the final say on everything as far as how we manage the game, and that's certainly what we'll be doing.
Mike Yuba.
Shay, we hear from Patrick DeMarco just yesterday, and then, Melvin Ingram, I think maybe Pat this past week, being able to see the new facility for the first time since his playing days. You hear from so many former players just how much they love this new facility, how much it's just second level. What can you do in terms of just trying to get creative right now? Because I know with the recruiting process, it's a little bit challenging to be able to get people to actually see the bells and whistles on campus. What can you and your staff do? Have you talked with Justin King maybe and trying to get creative with videos or anything like that? And how can you sell that product for something that you can't physically show recruits right now?
Yeah, I talked to Justin King multiple times a day about that. Obviously, a guy that's, as talented as he is and has great ideas. I think you obviously want to tap into that. I think some things that we did at Oklahoma were pretty unique when it came to the visits, and that's what it is. I mean, normally this time of year, like February was dead, I guess, last year. But normally this time of year, you've got high school prospects coming in the building 7 days a week, and we don't have that. So what do we have to do? We have to bring them to us and schedule these virtual visits, FaceTime, Zoom calls, all that, to be able to showcase what we're doing. So we're trying to get as creative as possible. Obviously, every team in the country since March has been doing this. They haven't had a high school prospect on campus. So we're, 9, 10, 11 months almost that we've been at this. You better not get stale, and you can't get complacent. So we're constantly trying to push the envelope and be on the cutting edge and find new ways of showcasing everything that we have to offer here at South Carolina. So that's been fun, just getting on these visits and being able to communicate with these prospects that we're recruiting. The newness, the excitement here in this building right now, this fantastic facility that is second to none in this country. I know that without a doubt. And then just the academics, the city of Columbia, this facility, Williams-Brice Stadium, the new staff. There's a lot that's good right now and will continue to be good going forward, and we're just trying to do everything we can to showcase that as much as we can.
Colin Taylor.
Yeah, Shane, just kind of sticking with recruiting a little bit, just the, signing day is coming up next week. Where do you feel like you are with this 2021 group, and what's been the response now that you have your full staff together with these 2022 and 23 classes you're trying to build out now?
Yeah, really good. I mean, I like the way that we're finishing up. Obviously, a lot of that was guys that have transferred in and have joined us, or mid-years at mid-year that came in. They're obviously a part of this new group as well, and so there is a handful of guys that we're still pursuing that are seniors right now, or that will be here in the fall, and then we're constantly full speed ahead doing everything that we can on those underclassmen or younger guys as well. So we're on the phone with them as much as we're allowed to be, which is nonstop right now, and doing everything within the rules there. But it's constant communication, and there's a lot of excitement, and they certainly feel that. And that's one thing too. Not to change the subject, but I've really been excited about is just maybe the other areas, resources that we've been able to, tap into, that guys that Justin Stepp was recruiting at Arkansas, that they want to come play SEC football, and they're maybe not from this particular region, but they have a great relationship with Justin from his time at Arkansas when he was recruiting them. Guys that I was recruiting at Oklahoma that maybe aren't in this region that have reached out and they want to play in the SEC and have an interest in us because of previous relationships. So recruiting is all about relationships. That's what it is. And obviously we have a fantastic product to sell here academically and athletically. But then when you have prior relationships, Marcus Satterfield was at Baylor. He's got ties in that part of the country where Greg Adkins is coming from. There's a lot of connections that, I knew that when I put together the staff, but couldn't be more pleased with the way that's coming to fruition here in these initial few weeks.
David Coniger.
Hey, Shane, have you finalized Connor Shaw's role on the staff?
Yeah, a little bit of everything right now, and that's the way it will continue to be. Connor and I are going to definitely sit down and shape exactly what that role looks like. Nothing has changed. If anything, we're just increasing Connor's role going forward. And I think Connor's brilliant. He's everything that's right about the University of South Carolina and University of South Carolina football, and the more ways that we can tap into that and utilize him, the better. Obviously, he was fantastic in that role and still is in the life skills, character development aspect of it as well. We'll continue to be involved with that, but the more ways that we can utilize him to advance our program forward, I want to. And I've said this before. I got hired and I told him this. I think I told you guys, I'm not letting him go anywhere. And he's somebody that I rely on a lot and bounce ideas off of. And he's got a great way about him. He's very knowledgeable about football, but he's very knowledgeable about a lot of things off the field as well. And we'll continue to utilize that as much as we can.
Greg Hadley.
Hey, Shane, kind of going off what Josh was asking earlier, now that you have the full staff in place, do you have a position group that you think you'll be spending more time with in practice, or do you kind of want to take more of a general role?
That's a good question. Ask me after that first practice and see where I veer to and venture to in that one as well. I talked to Coach Tanner and Chance Miller about this in the interview, and I mean it. I'm very fortunate that in my career I've coached a lot of different positions, whether it be outside linebackers, spurs and strong safeties here, corners here 1 year, running backs, tight ends. I've been a special teams coordinator. So I know enough, I think, to maybe be dangerous in those roles and certainly want to bounce around. Again, I go back to hiring good coaches. I'm not going to be trying to interrupt drills and micromanage and all that stuff as well. I want to be able to be around and support the whole team. And I've coached, like I said, I haven't just been an offensive coach where I'm always going to be on the offensive field, or just a defensive coach and I'm always on the defensive field. Certainly want to bounce around and help in different areas. One of my first practices at Oklahoma, after I got hired and I went back to Norman to prepare for the Big 12 championship, I remember thinking in one of the initial practices, I was watching Lincoln, and Lincoln coaches the quarterbacks at Oklahoma, and just remember thinking, what exactly am I going to do in that first practice, and where am I going to go, and how are those things going to be? So I'm certainly not going to be one of those guys sitting on a golf cart. I'm certainly not going to be one of those guys that just stands in the tower for 2 hours. I'm high energy and I'm active, and I'll probably be bouncing around everywhere. But as far as a specific group, not really. Like I said, tight ends and running backs are what I've done most recently, but I also love being around the defensive guys also.
Cam Gaskins.
Coach, I guess first of all, just how happy are you that you have your whole staff in place and that hiring process is done after the last month? And then what's the biggest thing, I guess, that you've learned about being a head coach and assembling a staff over the last couple of weeks? Still learning every day for one. As far as the staff, super ecstatic, and it's a great group of people in this building, and we have great coaches in this building. I mean, I'm realizing I knew that already, but then when you have other teams at the college level and pro level that have reached out to people since they got here, you've put together a pretty good staff of people because a lot of guys are interested in them. So I'm excited about that. It's constant, ongoing. I mean, we've got great coaches. So they're going to be in high demand going forward for sure. But it really feels good to have that group in there. We're still trying to finalize some of the final support staff roles where we get everybody in here and everybody that's in the building is in here. So we're getting close to having all that wrapped up as well. And then I don't know if there's one thing. I feel like the scene in Jerry Maguire where Tom Cruise is on the phone and he's negotiating deals and he's just got a phone to his ear, just walking around back and forth. Literally, I feel like that's what I've done for like a month when it comes to like trying to hire coaches. And it's not just, okay, hire 10 coaches. It's the support staff. It's these coaches. It's working through salaries within our salary structure, buyouts. It's not just if I want to call, Clayton White to hire him. Most of these coaches now, they have buyouts in their contracts. So it's just working through that. And I've definitely gained more knowledge from a financial standpoint over the last month or so than I did beforehand. But that's been a challenge, but a fun challenge. And I've talked to a lot of great coaches, assistants, head coaches that I've reached out to about these guys. So that's been a fun month and learning every day, but settling down a little bit and really fired up about the people that are here in this building and couldn't be more excited about going forward with them.
Chandler Mack.
Hey, Coach, thanks for doing this today. Just two questions. One, you guys obviously have brought back, guys like Melvin Ingram, Patrick DeMarco, Alshon Jeffrey within the past couple of weeks. Just one, why did you feel like it's important to bring those guys back to the program and let them see the new facilities? And then two, going into the transfer portal, talk to us about E.J. Jenkins and Jason Brown from St. Francis and why you feel like those guys are going to be good fits for the program.
Yeah. First of all, the former players, I mean, this is their program. They built this. I was an assistant coach here. I'm the head coach now, but none of this would be here if it wasn't for those guys and what they did. And I've met with a lot of former players in groups and on the phone and through text message and whatnot. And I've told them all, I mean, you're always welcome. And this is your program. Yeah, I'm the head coach of it, but I'm just leading your program right now. So, and I think they're a valuable resource for our current players. I mean, the reaction of Jordan Birch and Rick and those guys last week when Melvin Ingram was walking through the building was priceless. And, to see Luke Doty when different guys come around, I mean, those guys have led the way. So to be able to tap into that, it's great. I mean, I saw it at Oklahoma and when former players would come back through in the offseason, when Kyler Murray was back around or Baker Mayfield or whoever, it's such a huge impact on our guys. So the more I can get those former players around our current players, the better. And then we talked about it. You talked about the transfer portal. When I took over, that was one of the good things about us having a small signing class in December was the initial scholarships that we had left. Going forward, the flexibility, the volume of spots we had left where we could really, okay, these are our needs and let's go attack those needs right now. And we certainly have, whether it be from a defensive standpoint, on the defensive line and the secondary, that was a little bit of an issue from a depth standpoint, linebacker from a depth standpoint, and then receiver and quarterback. Those were two positions that we needed to, get some more depth at. I mean, quarterback, that's not a big room right now as well. So I'm good talking about them, right? Yep. So to have those guys on board for sure has been great. I've had conversations with them ever since EJ and Jason went in the portal, and really fantastic guys with some maturity and two really, 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 really good players. That they got a great story, and I think some teams certainly dropped the ball in recruiting when those guys were coming out of high school. But when you watch their tape, I mean, they're SEC football players, and we couldn't be more ecstatic about their confidence and faith in us, and being able to get that done and get these guys here quickly.
Hale?
Going back to what you said about Coach Adkins being a hellacious recruiter, what makes a hellacious recruiter? Can you describe that to us?
Number one, I mean, he's a great person, so that's what it is. And then recruiting, again, it's knowledge and credibility. And when you talk about a guy that's has the track record that he has as far as a coach at the pro level and the college level, the players he's coached, and the way his players talk about him, that makes an immediate impact when you start looking at when you start researching him. If you're a prospect, he's a great guy first and foremost, and easy to get along with, very personal, and you got to love recruiting. And when I was at Tennessee with him, it was very, very obvious how much he loved recruiting. Like a lot of coaches say they enjoy recruiting and all this, but they don't. It's pretty obvious with him. He's passionate about it, and you see that with the guys that he's been able to recruit, the lines that he's been able to develop. And so to me, those are some of the biggest things. It's just the work ethic. He's passionate about it, and knows what he's looking for, and does a fantastic job of going to get it.
John Whittle?
And I know you haven't had a ton of time with these guys, but when you're in offensive staff meetings with Marcus and with the rest of the offensive staff, what are 2 or 3 things that you feel like as a group have become very important to you guys when it comes to building the offense and building the playbook?
They certainly have fun in there. I mean, I don't think we have to worry about a staff dynamic being an issue in that room. Greg can probably tell you, too, from his 24 hours here as well. It was important throughout this hiring process to get great people in here. We got great people. They've got great ideas, every single person in that room. They've got great ideas, and being able to marry that. But they certainly get along well with each other. I'm a little bit jealous that they're in there all the time, and I'm in my office doing a lot of work that I have to do from the head coaching chair, that I'm not able to sit in that staff room with them throughout the day, because they're talking a lot of football, they're learning football, and they're working great with each other. But for sure, just the compatibility that they all have, because the players see that, how well that offensive staff meshes. But then I would also say just the things that we talked about. I mean, to me, how you play winning football offensively, you got to be tough, you got to be physical. Those are 2 things that we're going to be. You've got to be able to play to the strengths of your personnel, and getting the ball to our best playmakers in space, or whether that's handing it off to a running back, or whether that's getting the ball to a receiver and creating matchups. That's been very evident that's something that Marcus learned with the Panthers, or learn more about with the Panthers, that'll be important to us. And then you got to be able to protect the football and create explosive plays offensively. And that was important when I got hired. That's what it was important when I put together this offensive staff, and it's still important, and it's very evident to those guys in there that it's important to them also, as it should be.
Dick Cox?
Have you been able to come up with a role or a title for your father other than granddad or dad there? And has he been able to sit in on any of your meetings yet?
No, he hadn't gotten down here for that yet. He came down one night with my mom and sister, and just showed him around the facilities, and gave him a little taste of how fantastic this facility is, and then took him over to the stadium to let him walk through that. But my mom called me last night, as a matter of fact, and left a voicemail. She's a mom. She heard that I was going to be on the Paul Feinbaum show later today, so she was just calling to make sure she knew what time I was going to be on, and had it all set up to record. And she had surgery here recently, so she was going to move around her physical therapy times to make sure she didn't miss her son on TV this afternoon. But she did say that they wanted to get back down here again soon. I know he's eager to get down and go see Coach Staley's team play and Coach Martin's team play. So we're trying to work it around a basketball game. But no, I haven't crafted a role for him yet. But again, he'll be down here often, and looking forward to getting him back down here soon.
And that'll be 3:30 today on the Feinbaum Show, Coach Beamer.
Thank you.
Mike Gillespie's next.
Hey, Coach, thanks so much for doing this morning. Just quick question for you. Why is offensive line so difficult to coach? And what do you think separates a good offensive line coach from a great one?
To me, it's the one position where there's 5 guys that got to be in sync. I mean, if I'm coaching tight ends, I'm tied in with that offensive line, but I got 1 guy or 2 guys that might be on the field at the same time. But quarterback, there's 1. Offensive line, it's a unique group because it's probably numbers wise, it's your biggest position group on the team with the number of guys that are on scholarship or walk-ons as well that are in that room. But then you just got to have all 5 guys that work together. A guy takes a bad step with his right foot and 4 of them do it exactly right and that guy doesn't, it can mess up the whole play. So you got to be very detailed, you got to be very exact, you've got to instill that mental and physical toughness in guys, which certainly Greg's offensive lines have always played that way, which excites me. So to me, that's the biggest thing. It's just it's unlike any position that you have because it's a different group, and you kind of got to be a rare breed to be an offensive lineman in a lot of ways. You're not out there catching touchdown passes and running for touchdowns and all that, but we know how important that group is to any football team, and I'm fired up too and told Greg, I mean, we got those guys for the most part coming back, and we're good on the line of scrimmage when you talk about the offensive line and defensive line here, and that excites me because you build everything out from that.
We'll take 2 more, Josh, then Hale.
Hey, this is a little bit random, but February will be 10 years since Jadeveon signed with South Carolina. Wondered what I know you were gone by the time he signed, but what your memories were of that process while you were involved in it, and does anything stand out to you?
I was actually here when he signed, and then I think that night was when I actually talked a little bit more in depth with my dad about leaving to go back to Virginia Tech. So I remember being here on that Wednesday of signing day because I didn't go to Tech until I think it was early February, I believe. I think that's right. If I made that mistake and I'm wrong, sorry. But no, just man, a great story. I mean, obviously a phenomenal player, and that was a battle and throughout. But the fact that Marcus Lattimore and Stephon Gilmore and Alshon Jeffrey and those guys that were a part of those classes came before him, I don't want to say made it easier, but they gave credibility to staying at home and doing something here for the University of South Carolina. And that, I think, made an impact, and we were just getting ready. We were just coming off that SEC championship game appearance against Auburn, so Jadeveon was able to look and see what we did. But obviously, I give a lot of credit to those guys that came before him. And it's the same case right now. I mean, we're telling these prospects there's no reason. You have every resource available to you here at the University of South Carolina to win at the highest level. When you talk about our academics and athletics combination and the facilities and the resources and the support staff and the support throughout campus, got everything we need. And Alshon and those guys that came before Jadeveon saw that, and they got here. You saw what happened with guys when they came to South Carolina, and that's what we're attacking each day to try and do again. But enjoyed visiting with Jadeveon, and I probably would say this, like the thing that stands out throughout that process, and you could say the same thing about Stephon and Alshon and Marcus as well, is they were, I don't want to say easy to recruit because it was a challenge and it was a battle and it was extreme competition, but they were not caught up in like the recruiting aspect of it. Now, this was pre-Twitter and you weren't allowed to text message guys, and I guess there wasn't really Instagram and all that stuff, but those guys were just so, I don't know if low maintenance is the word, but they were not caught up in all the hoopla and all the look at me and all that stuff. They just loved football. And we had a staff meeting yesterday about recruiting guys that are high character, talented players that love football. And that's what those guys were. And Jadeveon was part of that as well. Obviously, it was a high-profile recruitment, but it wasn't a guy that you had to manage from a maintenance standpoint. He loved football, and he made a great decision to come to Carolina like those guys before him did also.
Does his name still resonate with the guys you recruit now? Is he one of those names that you drop a lot because he was the number 1 overall recruit, but also the number 1 overall draft pick?
No doubt. There was a quarterback that we're recruiting as well that I was texting with this morning about, when I was here before, and the first name he brought up was Clowney. And I remember he said, I remember being younger. I guess he would have been, 6, 7 around that time when he came out. But he said, I remember my earliest memories of South Carolina football are Jadeveon Clowney and that run that South Carolina went on. So it probably makes Alshon and some of those guys feel old if that guy's names now or their earliest recollections are him, but certainly, and all those guys do when they come through this, or hopefully when they come through this facility. But when we're doing virtual tours and we talk about the players that have come through South Carolina before them, it certainly makes an impact.
The last question goes to Hale.
If you've addressed this in one of your previous gatherings with us, please forgive me, but do you plan on giving someone on the staff the title of recruiting coordinator, or will that be up to the guys you have in your recruiting personnel department?
No, you haven't asked that. It's a great question. Haven't thought about it. Probably not. To me, I think a lot of times in that era of early on in college football, you did not necessarily have that player personnel department that guy handles a lot of it. I'm not against it, and I know Greg's been a recruiting coordinator and has done it at a high level at a lot of different places. So certainly that's something that I'm open to. I think there's more pressing things right now for our staff to get done. We have a personnel staff that we're trying to fill that handles a lot of that, and then nowadays with recruiting, like when I was here before, we had Robbie Lyles was handling high school relations, and Patrick Shine was basically our recruiting office, and that was it. And and Scott Morgan were two guys that were here, and that was it. And you look at the volume of staffs and the way they've exploded. It's a little bit of a different time than what it was even 5 years ago. So certainly something that I'm open to, but nothing that I think is pressing right now that we have to have that title.
Yeah, are you in position to discuss Taylor Edwards at this point, or are things still coming together?
I think that'll be the next time we talk, hypothetically speaking, if that person was able to come in there as well. But a lot of interest in that position. Wish Drew Hughes well, and hopeful to get all that here and get somebody in the building here very soon.
All right, thank you, Coach.
Yep, thank you guys. Have a great week.
Yep.
To be a part of this staff. I've been here roughly about 24 hours in Columbia, and I've coached at a number of different places, as you guys obviously can read where all I've been. But when I walked in this building, my chin dropped last night or yesterday afternoon. This is an unbelievable facility, and then you can feel the energy as soon as I walked in the building, from the players to the staff. Obviously to the coaches, and it has been a long, really fun 24 hours for me already in this building, and a long process to get here, but I'm here now, and I'm super excited about it. I'm looking forward to meeting all my players. I've met some of them so far, but to have some individual meetings set up with those guys over the next few days, and being around them in the weight room and all those different things to get to learn about those guys. I think one of the things that we have unique is our spring practice a little bit later on. Last few jobs I've taken, you had a quick turnaround to spring practice. So I think one of the things, one of my mantras that I really always talk about when I take jobs, it's about developing the person before the player. And I think until you're able to truthfully understand each player, and you're never going to get the best out of them as a player overall. And obviously we got to have a cohesive group, ones that are thinking all the same, all seeing the same, and those sort of things. And that's what you got to create. And that doesn't happen overnight. That takes time. Every place I've been, you had an opportunity to develop. And once you're able to develop people, then I think you'll see a product that you guys will be very proud of here at the University of South Carolina in the offensive line and offense in general. With that being said, I would be hesitant to say I'm really happy for my kids, my own children. my oldest son, Nick, and Nathan, my middle son, and my daughter, Natalie, who are excited for their dad also. So with that being, I'll open it up for questions.
Mike Gillespie with the first one.
Hey, Coach, just kind of going off of that, what's this process been like for your family now moving to Columbia?
Well, my oldest son is actually at Marshall University. He's a baseball pitcher for them. His name is Nick, and my middle son is Nathan, and he plays tight end at East Tennessee State. And my daughter's a senior in high school, and she's a dancer, being recruited pretty heavily across the country in the dance world. And so we'll see what happens with her in the very near future, where she may end up. But they're all three very excited. They are coaches' kids. They are athletes, and I always tease my two oldest boys that the daughter's the best athlete of all of them, and she is. She's special in a lot of ways.
Dick Cox.
Hey, Greg, I'm Dick Cox with Lindy Sports and Cox Sports Broadcasting, and welcome to South Carolina. You're a new guy in our area now. So what is the most important thing that you want people to know about you?
Well, I think the most important thing people know about me is I'm a family man. I love my children, and I'm going to love these players. I'm going to love these coaches just like they're my family, because they are. And I'm a tough, fair coach that I heard Coach Day, who I've had the privilege to work with 2 out of the last 3 years, that you got to reach down deep inside of people and you got to bring the best out of them. And they're all different, but you got to get it done. And that's your job as a coach. And your job as a coach to bring that out of them and develop them and move them forward, graduate them, and hopefully they have that opportunity to play this game for some money. And but at the end of the day, I'm a tough, fair person. I'm a family man who loves my children and love my players. And I really enjoy being around people that love the game of football. If you don't love the game of football, probably me and you're not going to get along very well.
Mike Yuva.
Hey, Greg, Mike here from WatchFox Sports. My question is, when you get to a point like this, obviously spring football is a couple weeks away. I know you're just trying to get acclimated to everything, probably getting the office, still getting together. How do you get this offense close together and as quickly as possible and be able to build that rapport? Because I know it's tough sometimes, but in terms of offenses, getting things going.
It goes back to relationships. You got to build relationships, just like I heard Coach Beamer talk about. I ran out of the offensive meeting to come down here and visit with you guys, and I was right in the middle of a thought, and I told him to hold it, and I'll be right back as soon as I get done. It has been absolutely a pleasure to be in that room this morning. We got in here early this morning. I actually got my walk in, got a little steam in at about 6 o'clock this morning, and was juiced and ready to go when we started. But you know, it's still all about relationships. You know, building the trust between one another, within a group, within a team, within an organization, to be the best you can possibly be.
Helmer Granahan.
Hey, Coach, I'm Helmer Granahan. I work for the 24/7 site covering the team. I'm just curious, with Coach Beamer's description of you as a recruiter, he referred to you as a hellacious recruiter. I guess what's sort of your approach that way? And I guess it would probably mirror some of the things you were saying about building relationships and that kind of stuff.
Well, as you can see, the amount of people we've hired here, I'm the oldest probably. So I've been around the block a lot. I know a lot of people. I've kind of recruited and coached in just about every state around this area. So I know a lot of people, and it's unbelievable the amount of texts that I've gotten from all high school coaches in Georgia and North Carolina, a few even here in South Carolina, obviously in Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio, Oklahoma, Texas. Just excited about the opportunity that I have to come here and to be with some of the other coaches that they've had relationships with or I've been through and recruited their school, maybe one person over a 6-year period. As many of you know, I was at Tennessee for a long period of time, and I probably went to 40 states in my 7 years there recruiting different people, Hawaii, Oregon, California, wherever. It doesn't matter to me. I think as long as you're just truthful with people, right? And a lot of people don't like the truth, you know. But if you're just truthful with people, and they trust you, then you have a great opportunity to get them. And obviously you got to have facilities and you got to have traditions and all that stuff, and that's all in place. So now it's about the relationship of them getting to know me even further.
Colin Taylor.
Colin Taylor from the Rivals Network here. I'm curious. I mean, you've been around Marcus Satterfield before. He was obviously a GA when you were at Tennessee. I'm curious, just how do your philosophy in terms of coaching offense kind of line up with him, and how cool is it to finally be back with him and see how far he's grown?
Well, let me say this. It's outstanding. I mean, from the minute he called me, a couple of weeks ago, whenever he got the job, I think, in fact, he was driving here or something. He called me up, and we were talking about protection as he was driving here, about what my thoughts were on this and that and this and that. And then, for about a week, I know he gave me my space because I had some things that I needed to take care of. And, I've been here for 24 hours, and we've probably talked ball for 12 of those 24. And it's exciting. It really is. I think we're the same kind of mentality kind of guy. We both want tough, physical people that love football, and we'll figure the rest of the stuff out.
John Del Bianco.
Hey, Coach. John Del Bianco with the 24 Sports site. I work with Hale. He had just asked you a question a couple questions ago. You had worked previously with Luke Day at Marshall. Just can you give maybe Gamecock fans a sense of what the strength coach is like here at South Carolina? I know they've gotten to hear from him a couple of times the last week, but can you share some of your experience with him?
Well, what you've heard from him is what he is 24/7. I think he talks in his sleep. I really do. I think he's a guy that he will get the best out of each individual person that he comes in contact with, whether that's his own staff, or that's the players on our football team, the rest of the coaches, whatever it is. He is a master of those types of things, and obviously very knowledgeable when it comes to the strength and conditioning world. I don't tend to think I know everything about that world at all, but I know that the teams that we have had that I've worked with are tough, physical teams, and I would anticipate that that will be the branding of things that we do. We're going to be tough, physical, and fast, and I think that's what you'll see. He's a great human being. He's got a great family. He's got a beautiful wife. He's got a son, and he's got a daughter, I think, that just turned 5 a couple days ago. So I'm excited for him, really excited for him, and excited about some of the other staff members that he also has down there in the weight room.
Thank you.
Lou at the State.
Hey, Coach. Lou Bezak with the State. What do you look for in an offensive lineman when you're recruiting them and when you have them? What characteristics do you look for?
Well, certainly you got to have some size, and there's all these measurables out there that the person's got to be this or got to be that. Certainly, yeah, you got to look at that. You can't have 10 6'1", 6'2" kids playing, but there's some kids out there that maybe are that size that can compete, but you can't have a whole room full of them. So you got to have some length, all right? You got to have some mass in the chest and the back end, and then you got to have kids. Defenses just don't play base defense anymore. They don't just line up and here they are and that sort of thing. So you got to have kids that can think and react and play fast. All right, that help. We'll try to help them with scheme to get that going. But at the end of the day, you got to have guys that can play really, really fast and physical. And then the number one thing I'm going to ask every coach that we recruit, any offensive lineman, does this guy love football? And if he loves football, then he's got a shot. He's got a shot. Doesn't mean he's going to do it, but he's got a shot. But if a kid is iffy about whether he is willing to pay the price to be what it does or what you have to play college football, then you're not recruiting the right person. to start with. And then, academically, kids have got to be able to communicate. They don't necessarily have to be great students, but they have to be great communicators, up front. So guys that can communicate, guys that have a little bounce in their step, obviously the more athletic they possibly can be. I know that's a number of different things, but the love of the game of football and physical traits are the top two things.
Josh Kendall.
Hey, Greg, how you doing?
Hey, Josh.
Can you give us a 90-second version in language that we'll understand of your conversation with Marcus about protections and schemes and just your philosophically where you start, whether it's zone blocking or whatever, in kind of layman's terms?
Truthfully, we started with just line calls this morning. How we converse about a combination block, whether it's a zone play or a gap scheme play or whatever it might be. We started from base one, how we converse with that. And I threw up, 40 some calls up there this morning. And like 37 of the 47 were exactly the same of what he knows and what he understands. So that worked out pretty good. So I'll learn whatever we got to learn. My brain is pretty powerful, and I have the ability to learn and adapt. So I will do whatever we need to do. If it's easier on the players, we'll do that. If it's easier on our staff, we'll do that. Whatever makes this thing work, right? We're going to do. It's not like this is what I'm doing, this is it, we can't do anything differently. It's none of that. So I'm very adaptable to whatever we need to do. I've been in a number of different offenses throughout my time, but I've also been in an offense that is very, very similar to what the base of this thing is going to probably look like. Very similar.
Cam Gaskins.
Hey, Coach, this is Cam Gaskins with ABC Columbia. I'm not sure how much film you've seen on the offensive weapons you guys are going to be protecting, but when you see a quarterback like Luke Doty, a running back like Kevin Harris, how exciting is that as an offensive line coach to know you've got two athletes back there that are going to take advantage of every inch you guys can give them?
Yeah, sometimes the plays that I like are the plays that we don't have to block anybody, And no, I'm just kidding. But obviously having great skill people around you, whether it's the quarterback position, tight ends, wide receivers or running backs, obviously can certainly make an offensive line maybe even look better than it might be. We know this. When we go into this thing, we're going to know what our job is. And our job is to have hats on the people that we're supposed to be able to block, right? And we're going to either read or the person that's not unblocked, right? We as coaches sometimes try to make the game too difficult. And it's really, actually, I'll take this from Coach Day, right? It's really about putting your hands on people and moving them to where they don't want to go, all right? Whether that's in the run game or the pass game, that's the object. And so the bottom line, there's 5 guys that have the ability to block 5 people over there on defense, and that's what we're anticipating doing. And the skill guys, we could put the ball out in space and hopefully make some people miss and those types of things. And certainly the skill positions can help the offensive line.
Phil Kornblut.
Yeah, hey, Coach. It's Phil Kornblut with Sports Talk Media Network here in South Carolina. From a technique standpoint and a fundamental standpoint, what you like to teach your linemen, what are some of those that you prefer? And is there anything about your technique and philosophy that is unique that maybe other offensive line coaches don't do?
I think you can make it too complicated on players. We try to be as simple as possible and try to get the best results we can by being very simple. And I give them 4 basic concepts, and that's we know what the snap count is, so that's called get off, right? The get off on the snap, not being a domino effect where some people are faster than others. We want to get off at the same time. The next one's how we strike, and that's how we block people. And we're going to try to get our hands on people as fast as we can. That's in the run and the pass. And the next one is body position. Okay, body position entails a lot of different things. That's our footwork, our landmark, the read of the running back, all those types of things. And then the 4th thing is something that you can control also, and that's finish. So from a philosophical standpoint, if we do those four things, get off, and we have great strike and great body position, and we finish, I think what you're going to see is a group of guys that can continue to get better. If we start talking all these little things, and little things do matter, sometimes you can complicate and make it very unclear to a player. So you want to be very concise, very detailed, and if they just do these four things, they can almost grade themselves. Does that make sense? So a guy's in there watching film, and he's studying film of himself, and one of the questions that players ask you is, how can I get better, coach? Well, I'll just say this. All right, let's go watch your film. How was your get off? Good. All right, how was your strike? How did you hit him? Good, coach. Excellent. All right, how's your body position? Not so good. Well, there we go. There's how you can get better. That's how you can get better on that play. Maybe my footwork needs to be a little bit better, all right, or my body position to be able to finish a player, all right, needs to be better. I think that answered your question, Phil. Is that good?
Phil,
That
you're
was
good?
excellent, sir. Thank you.
All right, okay.
All right, we got two more.
I mean, I could talk for hours on hours about what you just asked, and I don't think we have hours upon hours.
Dick Cox.
Hey, you can see I'm a little bit passionate about offensive line play.
Get it. Yes, sir.
Dick Cox with the next question.
Coach Beamer has put together a very unique staff with wise veteran coaches, a lot of young, energetic coaches, everything in common, it looks like, with family values and role models and faith being important right there. I know you've only been in town one day, but just talk about it. It seems like everybody, too, has worked together at one point and all, but just talk about the staff that you are now a part of.
Well, you know, when I over the last period of time that I've been talking to Coach Beamer, well, first of all, I know who he is as a person. I know who his father is. I've spent some time with his father, you know, in the past, and I know what he is all made up of. And when I look at jobs and when I have opportunities to take jobs over the years, obviously you want to look at the leader, right? You want to look at the leader. What is he all about? What is his values all about? And those, you know, and then obviously I know Marcus, and then I did my research on the other people. I didn't know Des Kitchens. I mean, I know who he is. Everybody knows who he is, but I didn't really know him. So I called some people to talk about it. Step, man, wow. He's a very energetic, very, very good person. And Coach Kimmery is a well-known high school coach that me personally didn't recruit at school, but I know some other people that did, knew what kind of people it was. So I did my homework, and when I knew all that stuff was lining up, I knew if the offer came, it was going to be really, really simple. And the answer was going to be yes. Okay? And so that, with that being said, that's why I wanted to be here. There were some other opportunities out there, in our profession. Could have waited around for a couple other opportunities, this or that. But I knew when this all lined up, this is the place that I wanted to be. All right? I wanted to be with this group of people led by Coach Beamer and led by Coach Satterfield on offense. And listen, I know a lot of those guys on defense competed against them over the last few years. All right? And Coach White is an excellent football coach. Always was a challenge for me to get ready for in my time at Marshall. So excellent football group, excellent football minds, excellent people, and certainly learning some of the support staff people that I didn't know as well. But I mean, gosh, I can't ask for anything else more than what I've already received in my 24 hours here.
You got time for two more, Colin, then Hale.
I guess you mentioned being passionate about offensive line play. I'm just curious, as you begin to evaluate this roster and as the season goes on, how do you measure progress with this group? How do you measure if your unit's doing well and you've been able to kind of keep teams in games?
Well, I think that's a pretty extended question for 24 hours being here. I don't know every player by name yet. All right, so the first things first, we got to start inside out, and we've got to start with learning the players. And once I get to know the players, then I get to know their skill set. Then I get to figure out what position they might start out and play. And then I figure out who can learn what and how does each guy learn. So there's a lot of different things that go on. But as a base standard, those 4 things that I talked about will be how we start this process of who's making progress and who's not. And if we can't do those 4 things, then, we'll be in trouble anyway. So, but if we can do those 4 things and we can show progress doing that by the end of whatever spring practice, then certainly I'll have a great feel for what's going on, who we have, and what kind of pieces are going to work together for our offensive line. It might be, I don't know. I don't know how many guys can actually snap the ball yet, to be a center. I don't know how many guys can play left tackle. I don't know how many guys can play right tackle. What I do know is we have some guys, and we have some returning players that have played some football. And I'll be anxious to continue to learn and watch some film from last year just to see what their skill sets are in a different type of offense. But still, you'll be able to see a skill set there that will have a starting point, obviously, and to move forward with. We'll see what that holds in the future.
The last question goes to Hale.
Coach, just going back to Coach White and what you were saying about preparing for his defenses and playing against them, what can you share about his system and what we can expect to see from that?
I think just the same thing that you've heard probably from every coach who's walked up here. Tough and physical. That's what I saw. Guys that like to play the game, guys that flew around, guys that can make plays in open space, just a well-coached team, very, a group that you didn't feel like you had a lot of advantages on. They were going to make you work for your yardage and for your touchdowns against his teams over the last couple of years that I've competed against them.
All right. I think that is it, Coach.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate everybody joining.